Hi folks, I'm Matt and welcome to My Expanded Universe, a show where I go through the entire EU in chronological order as best I know how. Alright, now that that intro's done, let's get to it. We're going to talk about count them, three Star Wars adventure journals, short stories. Now the first one, I can't even pronounce. It's written by Patricia Jackson, and I'm going to try my best. It's called Uhl Eharl Khoehng, whatever. It's from the Star Wars Adventure Journal number 8. She wins the prize and making the most random name. It means something, I think, in Karelian, but I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. But wow, what a unique and definitely, I think they could have picked a better name. Anyway, speaking of bad names, this focuses on Jedi Fable Astin. Yes, Fable Astin, I guess, or Austin. No, it's not an AU, so it's Astin. Fable Astin. That's a weird name for a Jedi, or a weird name in the Star Wars universe. Anyway, they are learning they're getting some lightsaber training from a former Inquisitor Brandel, who has lost favor with the Empire, and he's been drummed out of the Inquisitors. And so Fable visits Brandel and learns, better lightsaber techniques. And it's just in time, too, because Inquisitor Vilco is coming for Fable Astin, and they're going to have a lightsaber match. Man, oh man. There are a lot of people who love Patricia Jackson. I don't think I'm in that group. It was just kind of weird. I don't like stories about lost Jedi. They're still around. This is definitely during the Rebellion era, because we see Inquisitors going around. And yes, they're supposed to hunt down Jedi. Yes, there were Force-sensitive people. But it seems like there shouldn't have been any Jedi fighting the good fight or getting training at this moment, because the movies just make it sound like, and so do the books around this time, that Luke is the only Jedi available. And I mean, yes, there are Force-sensitive people, but practicing Jedi, there should be none at this point. But again, this is West End Games back in the day. They kind of had some loose reins, and so Patricia wanted to write about Jedi, and so she does. And to be honest, I mean, this story connects to some of her other stories. That's one good thing about West End Games. The authors, when they wrote these short stories, a lot of them connected them with other short stories they had. They were not asked to do that, they just did. So the weaving of continuity started way before Timothy Zahn's, Thrawn trilogy and everyone, conforming to it. West End Games had their own little, continuity within their stories as well. Now, it was basically within the author, but the author found their own little sandbox within this huge expanded universe to build a story of all these characters at different moments, at different times. Sometimes it's an overarching story arc, but overall, I do give them credit for that. But this one felt like someone wanting to write fantasy sci-fi fiction, and said, okay, I'll slap Star Wars on it. We'll throw some lightsabers in it. To me, it just didn't feel like Star Wars. I don't even know if that makes sense. Anyway, moving on to Star Wars Adventure Journal number 6. This one is written by Peter, and I'm probably going to mispronounce his last name here, but it looks like Swayafer. That's my best guess. And it's called Finder's Fee. Now, in this story, Lokar, who is going to help the rebels with something in exchange for some Imperial information. Now, Swayafer's stories were basically short. There wasn't much to them, but I always enjoyed them. I always thought that they were interesting. They had a little charm. Were there better writers for West End Games? Yes. But whenever I saw his name back in the day reading the West End, the adventure journals, I was like, oh yeah, here's a story about him. He was always fun to read. And so this is just a little story. It's basically insignificant in the grand scheme of things, but it's a nice little story just to hear what the other sides are doing, what the smugglers are doing. This isn't a smuggler with a heart of gold who wants to help the rebels. It wasn't one of those generic stories, which back then wouldn't have been generic, because they were just kind of putting these stories together at that time, and there were a lot of smugglers who just turned to the rebellion. It's like a Han Solo rehash, but Peter's wasn't as bad, and it's a decent one. Is it the best thing Adventure Journal's ever brought? No, but it definitely is interesting, and I've enjoyed all of Mr. Swafford's short stories. Finally, the last one is Star Wars Adventure Journal number 14, written by Gene Rabe, I believe it's pronounced. I'm really doing an awesome job with names right now. But anyway, Gene Rabe, it's called The Breath of Gelgelar. And basically, it talks about a Force-sensitive Celestian who makes a Force link with a bird on this planet. And it's kind of weird. He can feel what the bird feels and suffer when the bird suffers, and when the bird dies, he may die. Kind of weird. Again, this kind of goes into Patricia Jackson's category of West End Games missed the mark here. Not all the Star Wars Adventure Journals were written equally. Some were a little kind of kooky and crazy and out there, and this was one too. I don't know what the point was, but again, whenever I see Jedi practicing the Force, I'm thinking, no, you can be Force sensitive, but I just feel like they shouldn't focus on other Jedi, again, because Luke should be the central focus here, and he should feel all alone, even though we know there are Force sensitive people out there. But again, practicing Jedis, to me, it's a little far-fetched, but maybe to you it's not. Anyway, folks, that's all the time I have for now. See you next time with another video.